Hi, my name's Liz. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian, sports dietitian and nutritionist, and today I'll be talking to you about cross-contamination and food shopping with celiac disease. So if you know anyone who's been diagnosed with celiac disease or yourself, if you also have this condition, we also need to be mindful that, cross-contamination is really important to make sure we're aware of it and make sure that we're not consuming any traces of gluten as well. So, it can be daunting being diagnosed with celiac disease because we do need to be following a strict gluten-free diet for the rest of our lives. But in terms of how far, the food market and things have come along the way, there's so many products out there these days that are so much more convenient, heaps of different ranges of foods now these days, and heaps of different really big known food companies that are providing gluten-free options. And I find it's just a great sort of place to be in the world to know that there's heaps of products out there these days catering for such a condition. So in terms of celiac disease itself, if we do consume gluten when we do have celiac disease, it does damage the villi and the small intestine, and it is an immune response to gluten. So this is something that can damage the small intestine if we do continue to consume gluten-containing foods. This doesn't mean that if you don't have any symptoms but you've got celiac disease that you don't need to worry about it. Also, people that don't have symptoms and people that do have symptoms with celiac disease, they need to be following a strict gluten-free diet regardless of that. So it's really important to be mindful of, even if you're not experiencing symptoms, it's still really important to follow a gluten-free diet strictly. In terms of cross-contamination eating at home, a couple of tips include making sure that the bench tops are really clean, thoroughly cleaned with disinfectant and wiped away of any crumbs, making sure that we've got separate and sealed containers for spreads and dips and that type of thing so that we're not cross-contaminating with different products. In terms of that as well, we can label them, make sure that they are put for gluten-free users only to make sure that there's no sort of confusion and doubling up there. Cooking utensils, pots and pans, even chopping boards. Chopping boards I would recommend. They are probably easy enough to have your separate ones if you are celiac, just to make sure that we're not cross-contaminating through the chopping boards, because when there's a cut, the traces can get inside the chopping board. So it would be best to have your own chopping board and your own toaster as well if you do need to follow those strict gluten-free rules. In terms of the toaster, sometimes not always feasible to buy a new toaster. Coeliac Australia do have toaster bags, which are really, really convenient for people. That you can take them to work and know that you can have toast or a toastie without having traces of gluten. And it's just like a little pocket that you can pop the toast in or the bread in there to prevent any traces from occurring. But also, if we do have any, sandwich presses and things at home, just making sure they're thoroughly wiped and that type of thing. Or you could use a level of baking paper just to make sure that there's no traces there as well. Making sure we're always washing our hands in the kitchen. This should go generally, but also especially for gluten-free users, to know that there's no traces on their hands or anything. When deep frying as well, using fresh oil is always recommended. And if we are using, say, gluten-free and gluten-containing products in the same oil, we just want to make sure that we're using the gluten-free products first, so that there's no cross-contamination afterwards as well. Icing sugar mixture can contain wheat in particular, just making sure that we're using gluten-free icing sugar and mixture whenever you can. And don't dust meats or fish with gluten-containing flours. Some people can do this, but it's just something to be aware of, especially wheat and corn flour can be, something that can create a cross-contamination risk for sure. So try and avoid those if you can. In terms of eating out as well, whether that's eating at a friend's house or eating out at a restaurant, if we're eating out at a friend's house or a family's house, always be sure to bring some foods along the way so that you know that you've got some catered foods for you and you know that they're being prepared safely. In terms of, preparing foods at a friend's place or a family member's place, you could always just go there and prepare and help prepare so that you know that it's not, cross-contaminating in any way. In terms of a restaurant or eating out in particular, always phone the restaurant to make sure that you call ahead and get all organised to make sure that you are going to a place that is gluten-free, approved and properly with no traces of gluten. Coeliac Australia do have a resource on their website, which is really handy for calling ahead, and also just some tips on eating out as well, which can be very helpful for people with celiac disease. And also, if places claim to be gluten-free, we really want to check what that actually means from a restaurant's point of view. So it could be that they're gluten-free, but the traces don't really matter, but we need to make sure that they are caring about the traces as well. So just make sure we're being really particular in the way we're asking the questions as well. And please don't fear, if you're feeling like a restaurant isn't, something that you thought it would be, and you're worried about the cross-contamination, just move somewhere else. You don't have to feel like you need to stay at one particular restaurant. If you're not, sold on it, always move on and make sure that you find a place that you're feeling more confident with. And further on that as well, if you do find a restaurant that is quite good in catering, also Coeliac Australia do have some really good restaurants approved on their website that you can have a look at as well. But if there is a really good experience that you have when you're out, please thank the chef, because it's really good to know that they've catered for you and that they feel like they've made you feel welcome. And also it can create a really good relationship with you moving forward, to know that you can go back there and you've got a good rapport with them as well. And that could also mean that you might recommend different other celiac users to go there, and they might, become a celiac registered place if they really, follow that strictly and apply for it as well. So there are a couple of naturally gluten-containing cuisines, or some that are easier, to modify. Those cuisines include Thai, Mexican, Vietnamese, or even Indian. So look out for those two particular cuisines, and always ask about the ingredients and things as well. And also in terms of eating out, so always making sure we're calling ahead, being organised is the number one tip. We don't want to really just rock up and see what's happening, because it can be hard in the moment for restaurants to let you know on the spot. It's better when you call them when they're, not as busy and that type of thing, and they can give you their time of day. In terms of food shopping, there's four groups of suitable food groups on a gluten-free diet. So we've got naturally gluten-containing free foods, which includes fresh fruit and veggies, meats. We've got nuts and legumes, milks and fats and oils as well. And also gluten-free containing grains, which is, gluten-free grains, which is corn and rice. They're the main gluten-free grains there as well. Products labelled gluten-free have to actually be gluten-free, so you should be certain to know that if it says gluten-free, it is gluten-free. Products that use the Coeliac Australia endorsement logo are tested to be suitable for people with celiac as well. And also products that are suitable by ingredient. So any ingredients in a food product that are derived from wheat, oats, barley or rye should be declared in the food package. So always make sure you're looking out for that. And also traces of gluten. So, if it says may contain traces, that should be avoided. And also, just be mindful to look for all of that. I would dare say as well that if it says gluten-free, it should be gluten-free, but you might just want to turn on the back of the product and just make sure that it's got no traces or no other sort of labels on there, just to be 100% sure that you're consuming something that is gluten-free. As I said, there's a heap of products out there these days at health food stores, online, everywhere you go, that cater for gluten-free users, and I think it's really, really good to know that there's a massive market out there these days. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit with cross-contamination and food shopping. And if you want to get in touch, feel free to reach out on Instagram or send me an email, and we can get in touch if you're wanting to. Thank you. Bye.